long before the world knew the name America, before the great European empires charted every ocean, and before the idea of new and old worlds even existed, there was a people who called themselves the Norse. Most today know them as Vikings, but the truth of the Viking story is far deeper, stranger, and more beautiful than just swords, raids, and dragon ships. It is a story of explorers and settlers, of families, dreams, and the endless pull of the unknown. Imagine it is 1,000 years ago. Across the cold northern world, the days are long in summer and almost disappear in winter. In the far stretches of Norway, the sun never truly sets in June. The land is green and wild, dotted with pine and birch forests. The air smells of salt and earth. The fjords cut deep into the land, their dark waters reflecting the clouds and mountains. Here, the Norse people live in scattered villages, each a cluster of timber longhouses roofed with sod and grass. Smoke drifts from the holes above the hearths. Chickens peck in the yard. Sheep and goats graze on the hillsides. The people rise with the sun, or sometimes before, and begin their work. Daily life in the Viking North, to be Norse, is to live with the rhythms of earth, sea, and sky. Life is not easy. Winters are cold and fierce. The old say the gods themselves have to wrestle with the ice giants each year to keep spring from being swallowed up. But summer comes short, intense, and bursting with life. The fields are sown with barley and rye. Wildflowers bloom in every meadow. Men, women, and children work together to plant, weed, and harvest. The houses are built to keep out the cold. Thick walls of overlapping logs, chinked with moss, keep the wind at bay. Inside, the hearth is the heart of the home. A fire burns almost always, both for warmth and for cooking. The air inside smells of wood smoke, bread, and stew. Mornings begin early. The women bake bread from barley or rye, kneading the dough and baking it on hot stones. The men milk the cows, feed the animals, and mend their tools. Children help where they can, or chase each other between the houses, their laughter ringing out over the fields. In summer, fish are plentiful in the rivers and fjords. The men take their boats out at dawn, casting nets for salmon and cod. Sometimes they row far out to sea, following the herring or hunting seals. In autumn, the work is hard but hopeful. The grain is threshed and dried. The animals are led down from the high summer pastures, and the last hay is cut and stacked for winter. The days grow shorter. The first frost comes, followed by the long darkness. In winter, everyone gathers indoors. The hearth glows red, and the shadows flicker on the walls. Woolen cloaks and fur-lined boots are worn against the chill. Meals are hearty, stews of meat and root vegetables, cheese, dried fish, and bread. The long nights are a time for stories. The old men and women tell tales of gods and giants, of heroes and monsters. The children listen wide-eyed. Sometimes, in the deepest night, the northern lights what the Norse call the Bifrost Bridge shimmer across the sky. The people step outside, breath steaming, and watch in silence as blue and green flames dance above the mountains. They believe these are the pathways of the gods, the world of the Norse. Faith and fate. Viking belief is woven into every moment of life. The Norse see the world as a great tree Yggdrasil, whose roots and branches hold together all things. The world of men, the world of gods, the world of giants, and even the world of the dead. At the top of the tree, in Asgard, live the Aesir gods, mighty Odin, wise and one-eyed, Thor, red-bearded and strong, who wields his hammer to protect mankind from chaos. Freya, goddess of love and war, who rides a chariot pulled by cats. The gods are not distant, they are part of daily life. Every thunderstorm is Thor's hammer at work. Every raven is a sign from Odin. The people make offerings of ale or bread, leaving them on stones or in sacred groves to keep the gods' favor. Fate is powerful and mysterious. The Norse believe that every person ecstasy is woven by the Norns. 3 wise women who sit at the roots of Yggdrasil and spin the threads of fate. Even the gods themselves cannot escape the fate that is written. So the Norse live bravely and face what comes. Death is not to be feared. A good death means a place in Valhalla, Odin's great hall, where warriors feast and fight until the end of days. The seeds of adventure, restlessness and opportunity. Yet not all Norse are content to farm and fish. The north is beautiful, but it can be harsh. Land is scarce, and families are large. Disputes over inheritance, old feuds, or just the urge for something more often push men to seek their fortune elsewhere. Some become traders. Their ships sail south to the markets of the Franks, the English, and even the Arabs. They bring back silk, wine, and silver. Others become raiders, striking quickly along the coasts, then vanishing back into the mist. But many are settlers, looking for new land to call home. This restless spirit is in the blood. It is no wonder, then, that stories of lands beyond the horizon catch the imagination. In the longhouse, as the logs crackle and the wind howls outside, the old Skald begins to sing. He sings of Odin's wanderings, of Thor's battles, and of men who sailed farther than any before. Eric the Red. Exile and discovery. One such man is Eric the Red. Born in Norway, Eric's fiery temper and sharp axe led him into a deadly feud. Banished from his homeland, he sailed west to Iceland with his father, but trouble found Eric in Iceland, too. Another fight, another exile. This time, he looked west beyond the edge of any known map. The sea between Iceland and Greenland is wild and dangerous. Icebergs drift silently, sometimes as big as mountains. Storms rise out of nowhere, yet Eric and his crew sail bravely, following the sun across the grey waves. After many days, they find it a land of rocky coasts, deep fjords, and green valleys. Eric names it Greenland, hoping to attract settlers. He returns to Iceland and convinces others to follow him. In Greenland, life is even harder than in Norway or Iceland. The growing season is shorter, the winters are longer, but the land is empty, and those who come carve out farms on the narrow strips of green between the ice and the sea. They build their houses from turf and stone. They raise cattle, sheep, and goats. They fish and hunt seals. It is a hard, isolated life, but the people are proud and independent. The next generation, Leif Erikson and the dream of the West Eric's son, Leif, grows up hearing stories of his father's voice. He learns to read the stars, to steer a ship, to fight and to farm. In the long, dark winters, he listens to sailors who return from trading. Some speak of strange lands seen in the distant stark forests, white beaches, and rivers full of fish. One man, Bjarni Herjolfsson, is blown off course on his way to Greenland. Lost in fog for days, he finally sights an unknown coastline, wooded and wild. He does not land, but his tale sets fire to the imagination of every young sailor in Greenland. Leif is not content to wander. He is curious, bold, and quietly thoughtful. He decides to seek out this land himself. He gathers a crewmen he trusts, men who are strong and skilled. They ready a ship, a sleek and sturdy Nar, built for crossing oceans. Supplies are loaded: dried fish, smoked meat, barrels of water, axes, rope, and woolen cloaks. Before they leave, Leif visits his father's grave, set on a hill overlooking the sea. He places a stone and whispers a prayer to Odin and the Norns. Let us find what we seek. Let us return home. Preparing for the journey, Viking seamanship. The longship is the pride of every Norse settlement. Built from oak and pine, its hull is light but strong, able to flex with the waves. The keel runs straight and true, guiding the ship through rough seas. The crew knows every plank and every rope. They caulk the seams with tar and moss, polish the shields that line the rails, and sharpen their axes. On the day of departure, the whole village gathers. Women bring bread, cheese, and ale as gifts for the journey. Children run alongside the ship as it is dragged down to the water. The men take their places, some at the oars, others at the sail. Leif stands at the prow, hand on the dragon's head, eyes fixed on the horizon. The sail bellies out as the wind catches. The ship glides away from shore, leaving behind the smoke of home and the voices of the village. The water darkens under the hull. They pass out of the fjord and into open sea. The coast of Greenland fades, swallowed by mist. Ahead is only water, sky, and whatever the gods have woven into their fate. The sea is both friend and enemy. On a clear day, it is vast and blue, sparkling under the sun. Dolphins leap alongside the ship, gulls wheel and crash. But storms can rise in an instant. The wind howls, waves crash over the rails. The men, bailed water, cling to the mast and pray to Thor for strength. At night, the stars come out, familiar friends in a world without landmarks. The men steer by the North Star, by the shape of the clouds, by the feel of the swell beneath the boat. They sing to pass the time, old songs of gods, of love, of home. The voices blend with the wind, carrying hopes and memories across the waves. First, landfall, Helluland, the land of flat stones. After many days, a cry goes up a shape on the horizon. The ship draws closer. The coast is low and rocky, covered with slabs of stone and patches of ice. The air is cold and sharp, smelling of salt and snow. They land and explore, but find little to sustain them. The stones are flat and hard. The only life is the cry of seabirds and the scurry of Arctic foxes. Leif names the place Heliland, land of flat stones. They rest for a day, then set sail again, following the coast southward. The journey has only begun. The crew is tired, but their spirits are high. Ahead lies the unknown, the promised land of forests, wild grapes, and endless possibility. Into the forests, Vinland revealed, Norse encounters, and the world of sagas. The ship glides away from the land of flat stones, its dragon prow pointing south along the unknown coast. Leif and his crew take turns at the oars, watching the changing shoreline. The land slowly transforms, less ice, more green. The rocks soften into hills, and soon forests begin to crowd the shore. The air grows milder, tinged with the scent of pine and earth. They have sailed for days, always southward, their sails billowing with the wind, their hearts filled with weary hope. One morning, the cry of land rings out again. This time, the view is different. Towering trees line the coasts, thick and ancient, their trunks rising like the pillars of a great hall. The sand on the beaches is pale and soft, scattered with driftwood bleached by sun and sea. Leif names this place Markland, the land of forest. Markland, the gift of trees. For the Norse, wood is as precious as gold. Greenland's stunted birches and willows are barely enough for tool handles and roof beams. But here, in Markland, the forests stretch as far as the eye can see. The men walk among the trees, their boots sinking into moss and needles. They marvel at the size of the trunk-store pines and spruces, thick enough to build a ship or a great hull. Leif has the men cut timber, careful to choose straight, strong logs. They strip the bark and drag the wood down to the water, stacking it on the ship. This cargo alone is worth the journey. They hunt in the woods, finding deer and birds, and gather berries from tangled thickets. The air is alive with the hum of insects and the calls of unseen animals. The men rest for a few days, their spirits lifted by the abundance of the land. Some want to stay, to build a settlement here, in the quiet green of the forest. But Leif reminds them of the Tailista, land of wild grapes, and gentle winters still lies further south. Southward bound, searching for Vinland, the ship sets sail once more, heavy with timber, the crew eager to see what lies beyond. The coastline changes again, the forests thin, then return, but now the air is warmer. The days are bright, and even the sea seems gentler. At night, the sky is filled with stars, the familiar constellation of the Plough, the bright point of Polaris guiding them still. The men sing softly, old songs of longing and hope, their voices carrying across the water. The Norse believe the sea is a lever world of its own, ruled by Ran, the sea goddess, and Aegir. They tell stories of sea serpents and the 9 giant waves, daughters of Aegir. They leave small offerings, a coin tossed overboard, a crumb of bread when the sea grows fierce. Every journey is at the mercy of the gods. Every safe landfall is a gift. Vinland revealed, the land of grapes. At last, after many days, they find it. A wide bay opens before them, sheltered from the wind. The shore is gentle, with low hills and broad meadows. Forests crowd the riverbanks, and wild grapevines twist through the trees, heavy with fruit. The men wade ashore, their boots sinking into soft, fragrant earth. They taste the grape sweet and tart, a sign that the land is good. The rivers are full of salmon, thick and strong, leaping against the current. The woods are alive with deer, rabbits, and bird. Everywhere there is abundance. Leif decides this is the place. They will build their camp here, on the edge of the forest, close to the water. The men set to work, clearing a patch of land and raising simple shelters. They used the timber from Markaland and branches from the local woods. The roofs are covered with grass and moss, just as in Greenland. A new home. Norse daily life in Vinland. The days settle into a gentle pattern. Each morning, the men fish in the river, sometimes catching more than they can eat. Others hunt in the woods, bringing back venison and wild fowl. They gather berries and roots, learning to recognize the edible plants of this strange land. The air is softer here, the winters less cruel than in Greenland. Even the nights are warmer, though the men still gather around the fire, wrapped in their cloaks, telling stories under the stars. They build a small hall, its walls sturdy and its roof steep, to keep out the rain. Inside, the hearth is always burning. The men make bread from their dwindling stores of flour, stew the game they catch, and dry fish for leaner times. They repair their clothes, wash in the river, and mend their nets and tools. When the work is done, they sit on logs or stones, carving bits of wood into small figures, sometimes gods, sometimes animals, sometimes just shapes that please the hand. In the evenings, the Skald the storyteller begins his tales. He speaks of Odin the wanderer, who walks the world in disguise, seeking wisdom. He recites verses of Thor's battles with the giants, and the adventures of Loki, the trickster, who can change his shape to whatever form he likes. The men listen, their faces lit by the fire, the old stories bringing comfort and courage in this new and distant land. The Norse and the land. Reflection and wonder. The Norse are not just conquerors or raiders, they are people of deep feeling. Close to the world around them, they notice the shape of every cloud, the cry of every bird. They thank the land for its gifts, making small offerings at the edge of the forest, a few berries, a carved figure, a whispered prayer to the land spirit. They wonder about the people who might live here. The men have seen signs, narrow trails through the woods, a fire burned down to coals, the print of a small foot in the mud by the river. They are cautious. The Norse know tales of other worlds' lands where the rules are different, where spirits walk unseen, and where a careless word or deed can bring misfortune. Leif orders the men to be respectful. They keep their weapons close, but they do not seek out conflict. Instead, they work, explore, and watch the land change with the turning of the seasons. Encounters with the First Peoples, the Skrallings, one morning. As the mist lifts from the river, the Norse spot figures on the far bank, small, quick-moving, wrapped in furs. The strangers watch from a safe distance. The Norse call them Skrallings, a word that means the weak ones, though the truth is more complicated. At first, there is only watching. The Skrallings vanish into the trees when the Norse approach, but soon there are cautious meetings. The Norse offer gifts, bits of red cloth, iron knives, shiny beads. The Skrallings give pelts of fine fur, bundles of dried berries, and carved bone tools. The two peoples do not share language, but they share gestures, open hands, nods of thanks, careful smiles. The encounters are tense, sometimes peaceful, sometimes not. A misunderstanding, a sudden movement, a voice raised aloud, these can turn a meeting into a standoff. Both sides are wary. The Norse sleep with weapons close at hand, and post sentries at night. But the land is big enough for both, and for a time, there is peace. Seasons in Vinland, nature's rhythm. The Norse mark the passing of the seasons as they always have. In summer, the days are long and bright. The meadows fill with flowers. The river runs high with meltwater from distant mountains. The men swim and fish, basking in the sun, grateful for the gentleness of this place. Autumn comes quickly. The leaves turn gold and red. The air grows crisp in the mornings, and mist hangs over the meadows. The men work hard to store food for the winter, salting fish, drying meat, gathering every berry they can find. They tell each other the old stories of harvest, of Freya, god of plenty, who ensures the earth's bounty. They thank the land and the gods, pouring a little ale onto the ground, in thanks. Winter is not as fierce as in Greenland, but it is still cold. The men keep to their hall, the fire burning night and day. Outside, snow falls softly, blanketing the world in silence. The river freezes over, and the woods grow quiet. Inside, time slows. They play games, Hifatov, a Viking board game of kings and defenders, or knucklebones with sheep bones from their meals. They carve runes into sticks, casting them on the floor to ask the gods about the future. The Skald tells sagas, long stories of adventure, love, betrayal, and fate. He sings of Sigurd the Dragon Slayer, of Brynhild, and of the coming of Ragnarok, the end of the world, when even the gods will meet their doom. The men listen, lulled by the flicker of firelight, the warmth of their cloaks, and the old, familiar words. The meaning of sagas, memory and identity. For the Norse, stories are more than entertainment. They are memory, history, and the thread that binds one generation to the next. The sagas tell of ancestors long dead, of deeds great and small, of lessons learned and lost. They remind the men in Vinland who they are, even as they sit on a far shore, half a world from home. Sometimes, the men carve runes into wood or stone, marking the days, or leaving messages for those who might come after. A name, a boast, a prayer for luck. They believe that words, once carved, have power, that they will last as long as the stone stands. Dreams of home and horizons. The Norse in Vinland dream of home, of the green valleys of Norway, the icy beauty of Greenland, the laughter of children, and the warmth of family. But they also dream of the world beyond, of lands not yet seen, of adventures still waiting. They wonder if their names will be remembered, if their journey will become a saga, told around the fire, in winters yet to come. The land is gentle but strange. The men feel both awe and unease. Sometimes they hear strange cries from the woods at night, or sea shapes moving through the trees. They wonder if the spirits of the land watch them. Silent and unseen, they make offering small wooden figures, a twist of wool, a song sung softly to the darkness. They ask for safe passage, for peace, for the chance to see their loved ones again. The change of seasons, decisions to be made as the seasons turn. The Norse must decide, will they stay or will they return home? Some want to remain, to build a new settlement in this gentle place. Others miss their families, their farms, their familiar cold. Leif listens to his men, weighs their words, and considers the omen. He knows that to stay is to risk the unknown conflict with the Skrallings, hunger in a bad year, the sadness of never seeing home again. To leave is to let go of a dream, to return with stories, but without proof. In the end, they decide to return, at least for now. They will take what they have learned, what they have gathered, and sail back to Greenland. Leaving Vinland, the journey home, the Norse pack their ship with timber, furs, and samples of the strange new grapes. They leave behind their shelters, hoping that perhaps others will find them and know that they were here. They thank the land, make one last offering to the spirits, and set sail northward. The journey home is both joyful and bittersweet. The men are eager to see familiar faces, to tell their story, to rest by their own hearths. But as the coastline of Vinland fades into the mist, some look back, wondering if they will ever see this gentle land again. They sail up the coast, stopping in Markland to gather more wood, then on to Hel, and finally back across the wild sea to Greenland. Return, storytelling, settlement attempts, Norse fate, and the echoes of history. The ship leaves the gentle shores of Vinland behind. The Norsemen weathered, wiser, changed sail north once more, their vessel heavy with timber, furs, and memories that would outlast any cargo. The air grows cooler as the days pass. The coastline, so green and alive, slowly gives way to the colder, stony stretches of Markland and then the icy flatness of Helluland. For days and nights, the men row and steer. Winds buffet to sail, and the ocean's moods shift, sometimes calm and glassy, sometimes a restless, grey beast rising beneath the hull. The Norse know these waters. They read the sky for omens, watch the seabirds, and sing the old songs to keep their spirits steady. They remember the tales of Aegir the sea giant, and Ran, his wife, who waits to snatch unwary sailors into her net at the bottom of the sea. When the waves crash and the wind howls, the men whisper prayers and make offerings. A ring of bread, a splash of ale, a carved bone shape tossed into the froth. They believe the spirits are everywhere, on the wind, in the creak of the ship, and the salt spray on their faces. Finally, after many days, the familiar outline of Greenland emerges from the Forgets Mountains, stark against the pale sky, its fjords opening like welcoming arms. The men row harder, their hearts leaping at the sight of home. The village comes into view. Turf-roofed houses clustered near the water, smoke rising from hearth fires, children and dogs running along the shore. Homecoming, tales by the hearth. The return is a time of joy and relief. Families are the travelers are welcomed with feasts of roasted meat, fresh bread, and strong mead. The longhouse fills with laughter and song, the fire glowing bright as the night falls outside. Leif and his crew become the center of every gathering. Neighbors and kinpreth close, eager for news and stories. The men share what they have seen, the wide forests of Markland, the grapes and salmon of Vinland, the strange people they met, the beauty and bounty of the far-off land. Some listeners are widened with wonder, others skeptical, but all are drawn in by the magic of the tale. The Skald takes up the story, shaping it with his words, adding flourishes and details that will linger in memory. He sings of the voyage as a mighty saga of men who braved the unknown, who faced monsters of wind and wave, who touched the edge of the world and returned. The sagas spread memory and legend in the Norse world. Stories are not written in books. They are carried by voices, passed from person to person, from one long winter to the next. In every hall, from Greenland to Iceland to Norway, the tale of Vinland is told. Each teller adds something new, a detail about the grapes, a warning about the Skrallings, a prayer for safe passage. The story grows. Some say Leif was not the first to see the new land, that a trader named Bjorni Hajofsson glimpsed it years before. lost in fog, too cautious to land. Others say that Leif's brother Thorvald sailed after him, eager for his own adventure. The saga's part history, part poetry, part dream become the memory of the people. They are recited at feasts, in the hush of winter nights, and at the edge of sleep. They shape the identity of the Norse, reminding them that they are wanderers and home builders, both fierce and gentle, both children of earth and ocean. Thorvald and the next voyages. The tale does not end with Leif. News of Vinland's riches stirs the restless hearts of many. Thorvald, Leif's bold and impetuous brother, gathers a crew and sets off in his own ship, determined to see Vinland for himself. The voyage is both familiar and new. Thorvald follows his brother's route, landing first in Markland for timber, then pressing on to Vinland. There, he and his men build camp, explore the rivers, and marvel at the abundance. But the Skrallings return, this time more wary. Tensions rise. A misunderstanding, perhaps over trade, perhaps over territory, leads to a clash. Arrows fly. Thorvald is struck and mortally wounded. On his deathbed, he asks to be buried beneath a great tree, looking out over the sea. His men honor his wish, then return home with heavy hearts. Thorfinn Karlsefni, the dream of settlement, the dream of a Norse Vinland, does not die. Some years later, Thorfinn Karlsefni, a merchant and adventurer, gathers the largest expedition yet, men, women, even livestock. This is not just a voyage, but an attempt to found a new settlement. The ships sail west, stopping in Greenland to gather more supplies. Then onward, they build a proper camp, with houses, fences, and fields. The settlers try to live as they would in Iceland or Norway, planting barley, tending cows and sheep, carving out a home from the wild. For a time, life is good. The land is generous. Salmon in the rivers, game in the forests, mild weather that eases their labor. The settlers trade with the Skrallings' milk, cheese, and iron for pelts and furs. But tensions simmer beneath the surface. One day, a fight breaks out over a trading deal. The Skrallings attack in force. The Norse defend themselves, but realize they are outnumbered and far from help. After several years, the settlers decide they cannot stay. The land is beautiful, but the cost is too high. They abandon the settlement, their dreams of a Norse America fading into memory. The power of fate, Norse beliefs and acceptance through all this. The successes, the failures, the Norse keep faith with their gods and the power of fate. When trouble comes, they say, it cannot be helped. The Norns have woven it. The sagas remind them that all lives are threads in a great tapestry, some long, some short, some bright, some dark. Even the gods themselves must face their destinies. Odin's quest for wisdom, Thor's endless struggle, the shadow of Ragnarok, when all things will end and begin again. The Norse accept both joy and sorrow, both gain and loss, as part of the pattern. They teach their children to be brave, to endure, to seek adventure, but also to know when to let go. The echoes of Vinland, what was left behind. After the last settlers leave, Vinland falls silent. The houses collapse, their timbers softened by rain and rot. The fields return to wild meadow. The marks of the Norse fade into the land's small carvings. Lost tools, a buried ship fragment here, a broken spindle there. But the story does not die. In Greenland, Iceland, and Norway, the saga of Vinland is told for centuries. Some believe it is true, others dismiss it as fantasy. The world changes. The Norse settlements in Greenland persist for hundreds of years, then gradually dwindle as the climate grows colder and trade with Europe falters. The last Norse voices in Greenland fall silent in the 1400s. Their homes abandoned, their fate a mystery. But in the sagas, Vinland remains a place of hope, adventure, and possibility. The slow drift of time, myth and memory as centuries pass, the world forgets. Europe enters the age of exploration. Columbus sails west, believing he is the first to touch a new world. The Norse sagas, once living memory, become old manuscripts, tucked away in Icelandic libraries, written in a language few can read. Yet the stories have power. They survive in whispers, in the names of places, in the dreams of sailors who watch the horizon with longing. Modern rediscovery, a world reawakens it, is only in the last century that the world rediscovers the truth of it. In the 1960s, a Norwegian writer, Helgen Stad, followed the clues of the sagas to the northern tip of Newfoundland in Canada. There at a place called Lance Ole Meadows, they find what no one thought possible. The remains of Norse buildings. Blackened by age, their shapes clear in the turf. Iron nails and rivets, a spindle whirl, a bronze cloak pin. The evidence is undeniable. The Vikings were here 500 years before Columbus. The world is stunned. The sagas are not just stories, but memories of real journeys, real people, real dreams. Legacy. The enduring spirit of the Norse today. Lonso Meadows is a windswept field, grass rippling like the sea. Visitors walk among the outlines of ancient houses, imagining the crackle of fire, the ring of axes, the voices of men and women who dared to cross the unknown. Historians and archaeologists still search for more other settlements, lost artifacts, new clues in the soil. But the true legacy is not in the ruins, but in the spirit of adventure, the courage to dream, and the willingness to journey beyond the edge of the map. The saga continues as the fire burns low in the longhouse. The skald's voice softens. He speaks of the distant shore where the Norse once set foot, where the wild grapes grew and the rivers teemed with salmon. He reminds his listeners and now youth that the world is larger and more mysterious than we know, that every story is a map, that every journey, no matter how far, leaves a mark that time alone cannot erase. Picture the longships sailing west, their red-striped sails bright against the grey sky. Picture the explorers standing on unknown shores, feeling the thrill of discovery, the fear of the unknown, and the hope that this new land might become home. And remember, the world is full of secrets, waiting to be found by those who dare to listen, to dream, and to explore. Rediscovering Vinland, the modern echoes of the Norse, and a gentle nightfall centuries slipped by, the story of Vinland echoing only in old sagas and the wind across northern seas. The Norse settlements in Greenland faded quietly, and the world moved on new peoples, new maps, new dreams. Yet the memory of those voyages, the hunger for what lay beyond the edge, never vanished completely. The search for truth. Scholars and skeptics, for a long time, few believed the old Icelandic tales. The sagas of Leif Erikson and Karlsefni seemed like woven legends, a tapestry of poetry and imagination rather than true history. Scholars debated, could the Norse really have crossed the Atlantic centuries before Columbus? Where was the proof? Some searched in libraries, translating brittle manuscripts, tracing the winding paths of memory in the Old Norse tongue. Others looked to the land itself. The sagas spoke of Helluland, Markland, and Vinland, places whose names sounded like echoes from another world. Some thought they must lie somewhere along the wild coasts of North America, hidden under centuries of grass, moss, and snow. An idea set sail, the Engstads and Lancer meadows in the mid-20th century. A Norwegian adventurer named Helge and his wife, Anstein Engstad, an archaeologist, decided to follow the sagas not just as stories, but as clues. They traveled to Newfoundland, at the far northeastern tip of North America, where the land meets the cold Atlantic, and the wind never seems to sleep. There, in a place called Lonso Meadow, the Ingstads found something odd. Gentle mounds rising from the earth, far from any known settlements. The local people knew of these shapes, but no one knew their origin. The Ingstads began to dig. Slowly, carefully, they brushed away the grass and earth, layer by layer, as if turning the pages of a buried book. What they found changed history, unearthing the past, evidence of Norse presence beneath the turf. The archaeologists discovered the remains of ancient, low structures built from sod and wood, shaped just as the sagas described. There were hearths where fires had burned, blackened stones that had warmed the hands of men and women 1,000 years ago. They found iron nails and rivets, bits of bronze, a bone pin, and a spindle whirl for spinning wool items that could only have come from the Norse world. There were workshops where iron was shaped and repaired, and the faint traces of a boatyard where ships were likely mended for the long journey home. Everything matched the descriptions in the sagas, the layout of the houses, the way they faced the wind, the style of tools and crafts. Scientists tested the artifacts. The wood, the iron, the bones all told the same story. The Norse had indeed built a settlement here, at the edge of the world, nearly 5 centuries before Columbus set sail from Spain. The quiet power of ruins today. Visitors to Lanso Meadows walk among the soft, grassy outlines of those ancient buildings. The wind rustles, the grass, and the sea is always near. If you listen, you can almost hear the voices, the ring of axes, the laughter around the fire, the low songs in the evening. There are no treasures here, no golden hoards or jeweled crowns. The true treasure is the proof of presence, the sign that people once lived and hoped and dreamed in this place, Far from home, at the edge of everything they knew, archaeologists continue their work, careful as ever, searching for more traces, maybe another camp, another hearth, another story wading beneath the earth. The enduring fascination. Vikings, in the modern world. Why do the Vikings still capture the imagination? Perhaps it is their boldness, the way they faced the unknown with open eyes and steady hearts. Perhaps it is the poetry of their stories, gods and monsters, great journeys, love and loss. Perhaps it is the way their world feels, both ancient and strangely close. The wind in the pine trees, the warmth of the hearth, the longing for adventure and home. In the modern world, the Norse are everywhere in books and films, in art and games, in the names of days and places. We remember them in the thunder, in the stories we tell about courage and fate, in the restless urge to see what lies just beyond the horizon. People travel to Norway, Iceland, Greenland, and Newfoundland to walk where the Norse walked, to breathe the same cold, clean air, to feel the weight of time pressing gently against their skin. The echo of sagas, how stories live on the sagas, once memorized and recited by the light of a fire, are now printed in many languages, taught in classrooms, and loved by readers everywhere. Each generation finds something new in them. Adventure, wisdom, warning, hope. The Norse taught that memory is sacred. They carved runes on wood and stone so that words and names would not be forgotten, even if the speaker vanished. Today, we remember the names Leif-Erik Freitas, Thorfinn, and those whose stories were never written down, who lived and died with only the wind to carry their deeds. The Norse way. Living with uncertainty, the Norse accepted that the world was uncertain. They faced storms, loss, and failure as part of the great patterns. To them, it was not shameful to turn back from danger, to mourn a lost friend, or to abandon a dream that could not be. What mattered was courage, kindness, and the willingness to try. In our own lives, we face unknown seas challenges, changes, losses, and new beginnings. The Norse remind us that it is all right to be afraid, but better to set sail anyway, to trust in our strength, in our friends, and in the wisdom of those who walked before us. A gentle nightfall, rest, and reflection. Now, as the story winds down, imagine yourself standing in that grassy field at Lonsö Meadows. The sun is low, painting the sky in streaks of gold and lavender. The wind is soft, carrying the scent of salt and wildflowers. You close your eyes and listen. The waves on the shore, the distant call of a seabird, the whisper of old words spoken long ago. In the hush of twilight, the boundaries between then and now blur. You are both here and there, both now and then a witness to the saga that never truly ends. The longships are drawn up on the sand, their sails furled. The fire crackles in the hearth. Men and women share food, laughter, and dreams. Somewhere, a skald begins a new story, promised that adventure and wonder are always waiting, just beyond the edge of sleep. Letting go, the last gift of Vinland. As you drift toward rest, let the story of Vinland carry you gently over the sea of dreams. Remember the courage of those who left home for the unknown, the patience of those who waited, the wisdom of those who learned to listen to the land. There are always new stories to find, new worlds to discover, new songs to sing. Tonight, as you close your eyes, let the memory of the Norse fierce, gentle, brave guide you into sleep. Their saga is not just a tale of the past. It is a reminder that even far from home, under strange stars, we can find beauty, meaning, and peace. The world is wide, the night is gentle, and somewhere the longships sail on, forever westward, forever seeking, forever remembered in the hush of history.